in this build video here, we're making this coffee bar as you saw in the intro. And to start it off, I milled down some 8-quarter ash and glued it up for the top. And now I'm just going to remove it from the clamps, remove some of the excess glue, and get to sanding. Now after I sand the top down nice and smooth, I move on to cutting the panels for the main box part of this cabinet. And I break down the materials with a track saw and cut some to final width, and then some of them I will take the pieces back to the table saw and trim them all down to their final dimensions. Now I'm cutting a rabbet in the back of the panels to accept the 1/2-inch back that I'm going to use for this cabinet. And doing that, I just set a dado stack up on the table saw, put a little auxiliary fence with MDF so I can get the blade right against the fence and cut the rabbets. So here you can see the rabbet and also the dado for the bottom of the cabinet all cut out. Next, I'm just cutting the bottom to length, and then we will start assembling the cabinet. So as you can see, I use various different methods for assembling each piece. The middle divider, I just glue and screw from the bottom of the cabinet, and the sides slide in to the bottom with that dado that we made earlier. On the bottom here, you'll see I added these little strips, and that was just to give me a surface to kind of nail together temporarily while the glue dried in the dado. So I just tacked it to the side wall flush with the dado, and then after gluing everything together, just tacked up from that piece into the bottom of the cabinet, just as a temporary support while the glue dried. And obviously this is the bottom of the cabinet, so it doesn't have to be pretty. Next, I'm making the fixed shelf that'll go on the left side of the cabinet here. Now the customer wanted a wine cooler to go into this, so there's going to be a fixed shelf on the left side and adjustable shelves on the right. And to attach the fixed shelf, I just cut it to length and used some pocket hole screws to secure it. And this is a relatively small shelf, so there's not going to be much weight on it, so that's why I didn't really put a dado in it. Now just to clean up some glue, squeeze out a little trick I learned on YouTube from somewhere is to use a straw, pinch it together, and run it along the groove, and it'll get the glue out quite nicely. And here I'm just adding some supports to space between the middle divider and the side walls to give us an attachment point for the face frame as well as the ash top. And now I'm gluing the back side of the cabinet to accept the 1/2-inch back panel. And we'll just drop it into place and nail it in. that that's done, it's time to move on to the face frame material. So here I am, just kind of rough cutting my 1x poplar to approximate lengths, and then ripping them down to their final width here on the table saw of 2 inches. Then I cut everything to the final length and assemble it together with some pocket hole screws. Just apply some glue to the plywood of the cabinet, and we'll align the face frame, place it on there, and glue it up. And you'll notice I put some pocket hole screws on the bottom of the cabinet, that way it can screw up into the face frame, as well as the supports that we added earlier to attach the face frame there. And on the side walls, obviously we can't really use pocket hole screws without filling the hole, so we just nail it. And now onto the adjustable shelves, just some plywood with a solid wood band on the front face of it. I just attached that with some glue. And the piece itself. And I just use my 23 gauge pin nailer to attach it. Everything here is being painted, so again, doesn't have to be super perfect. And now I'm drilling the holes for the adjustable shelves on the right side of the cabinet with a Kreg shelf pin jig that you see here. Now on to the door. Now the door I made with a pocket hole screw construction. Instead of doing a kind of cope cut with some sort of style on it, I did it this way just to save time and materials. If I were to do it how you would make a normal cabinet door, where you would use a 1/4 inch panel instead of a 1/2 inch panel like I use, I would have had to buy more material, and I had a leftover material from the back to make the door, so that's why I made it this way. And so I just routed a rabbet all the way around the door there and cut a panel to fit into it. Now this is a sliding door, so you're never going to see the back side of the door. Now if this was a normal cabinet door that you would open with hinges, of course yes, I would make it differently, but this just saved a little bit of time and materials, therefore saving money. And now on to some more sanding. And now on to making this sliding door hardware. Now I made this hardware myself out of some 1-inch flat steel. I cut the 2 pieces that'll go on the door to length, and then I just round over the top edges of those pieces. And now I'm just marking out the top hole where the bolt will go through and tie into the bearing, and then I drill 2 more holes below that to use for mounting it to the door with a few screws. And you can see here I just take the bolt, put a nut on it, put the bearing that I found on Amazon on it, and then another nut. And then those are the 2 flathead screws that I'll be using to assemble it to the door. So I just pre-drill some holes and screw it to the door. And the top bit of rail is for the bearings to slide along, and the bottom bit of rail is just so that the bottom of the door won't swing out from the cabinet, so it keeps it secure as a guide in place. And just with some adjusting of that bottom rail, the door will slide nice and smooth. So the finish that I'm using on the hardware is just a black spray paint that's made for metal. And then the cabinet is sprayed with this red, just a latex paint. And I did about 3 coats, sanding between the first coat and then the second and third coat. I didn't really use much sanding as it didn't really need it. And here, got to get an Instagram post in. And the top ash is stained with a darker brown stain. I forget the name of the stain that I used here. And then after the stain, I brush on a coat of sanding sealer before I put the clear coat on. Then I sand that lightly with 320 and then spray the clear coat on. And that's just a polyurethane finish there. So here it is, the cabinet completely finished. Let me know your thoughts on this. I definitely enjoyed making it. Very happy with the result. The customer's happy. All in all, a good build and a good day. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in another video.